the 2013 Otisfield Historical Society. And I think it's one, you know, so many of the things we've been talking about, so many of the programs we have, we're talking about things that happened back when Howard Dyer remembers the best. But this one, I suspect that almost everyone here has experienced ramifications, if not directly, this great storm of '98. Okay, so we have to give special thanks to people who put a lot of effort into this. Ann Pastora for her diary and photos, Nancy Jackson for photos, Mike Thorne, Mike and Priscilla Delahanty for photos, Bob Tracy, CMP for a photographic history of the ice storm, Vicki Rogers and Joan Jackson for printed items and much more. Marilyn Strout just gave us a paper on some of her experiences during that time, and of course our guru for PowerPoint, David Heyer. Maine's three worst storms. These transformed within my lifetime. The fires of 1947. I remember being on Bell Hill and watching the smoke coming up from Brownfield and the cinders from the fire on Otisfield Court falling around our house. 200 years flood. 1987. I was in the Sahara Desert, so I don't have any memories of that, though those of you who are here certainly do. And then the ice storm of '98. I was not here then either. So here's a brief rendition of how things unfolded. January 5th, rain starts, temperature is freezing. It's raining from above and freezing on the ground. The rain continued right through to January 7th. Lights began to go out in Otisfield by the 8th. I'm surprised they didn't go out sooner. Governor King declares a state of emergency and calls out the National Guard, and first responders arrived from Massachusetts. On the 9th, the rain ends. Ice accumulation, 1 to 3 inches. More than 550 two-man crews were working statewide. These were people who were first responders from Massachusetts and also the National Guard and local volunteers. Temperatures fell on the 12th and the wind increased. The President declared this an area of disaster on the 13th. Temperatures fell below zero on the 14th, and finally on January 20th, flights were back on in Otisfield after 13 and a half days. Now, in the summer before, I wanted to interject something. I was supposed to go to Kandahar, Afghanistan, to put in an irrigation system, and then President Clinton sent in 3 dozen Tomahawk missiles right into the valley where I was supposed to be working. Had I gone there, my neighbor would have been Osama. And so the organization I worked for says, well, go back home and we'll find you another place. And when I came back home, I discovered that my father had retired. And I felt he was buying a lot of toys, you know, this big honking truck and a generator. And I said, Dad, why do you need that big honking truck? You've lived in Maine all your life. How many times you really need a generator? Well, in January, I was in Croatia. And the phone rang. It was Dad. He says, I just want you to know that I'm standing here looking out the window from what hill is it? Oxford he lives on?
Allen Hill.
Allen Hill, looking across Oxford Plains, and over this vast expanse, the only light is coming from my house. Okay, so we are, let me see, okay. The power problem. January 8th, the power was out for 70% of Mainers, and that would be a population center in the south. Emergency broadcast systems fails because of no backup generators. 3,200 main utility poles are snapped, and 7 safety and communication towers collapse. Here's a map supplied to us by CMP, and the darker the color, the worse the conditions, and you can see Otisfield is right smack dab in the middle of the very worst part of the ice storm. Human casualties. I find this a bit astonishing. Only 5 deaths, we're told. One from carbon monoxide, and considering there are 300 to 400 poisonings in the state, that's impressive. One person was killed by a falling tree, one from hypothermia, and one was crushed by a falling roof. There were also deaths that you might say were a little associated with the situation. For example, suicides and murders. And we will hear about a couple of those from people in our audience tonight, so I think the numbers might have been a little higher. Emergency shelters. The Red Cross set up 117 overnight emergency shelters, but being Mainers, those people stayed in their homes. Other casualties, this information from CMP. Total cost, $55 million for CMP repairs. Statewide damage over $300 million. Forestry was severely damaged, estimated to be $300 million. And I can tell you, as someone who cuts his own firewood, the damage is still clear. When you go out in the woods and particularly cut down hardwood trees, they have center rot because rain was able to get into the pith and start rotting. Pine trees fared better because they had pitch and were able to repair themselves. The maple sugar industry was hurt badly, and I think it will take some generations for that to come back, because so many of those maple trees now have center rot. Recovery from the ice storm of '98 was a test that Maine passed with flying colors. Repair crews from many different states coordinated their efforts. Residents handed out warm clothes and food to power company repairmen. Citizens helped crews clear roads. What else are they going to do? Neighbors checked on neighbors, and those with water and generators shared them. What Mainers learned? More residents now have wood stoves and portable generators, and I'm one of them. Now, more public now have backup power. I assume that's from other sources of power. The Maine Forestry Service has a better wildland firefighting equipment. And you might ask, what's that got to do with ice? And it was that the government gave fire departments across the state lots of money. And so they use that also for firefighting equipment. More maintenance of power lines now. I'm sure you've noticed that every couple of years at least, they're coming up and down our roads and cleaning the trees away from the power lines. I'm always out there making sure they don't do it on my property. So I think we're very fortunate that we had at least one diary keeper in town, and Astora. She kept a 13-day diary, and she is now going to read to us from that diary.
My name is Ann Pastor, and those of you that don't know, I live up on top of Bell Hill, right across from the Meeting House. Thursday, January 8th, day 1. My dog Sasha woke me up at 2:40 a.m. I thought she needed to go out, but I soon realized that the power had gone off, and for some reason this always bothered her. I took her out through the basement door and heard the strangest sounds echoing throughout the woods. It was raining, and the trees were breaking in the valley. It reminded me of the sound the ice made when we skated on the river as kids. I tried to go back to sleep, but finally gave up and got out of bed at 5 a.m. My husband Glenn, my son Noah, and my daughter Lindsay all woke up from the crashing of the tree branches falling outside their windows. Now the trees in our yard were starting to break. 7 a.m. It was light enough now to see the initial damage, although at this point we did not realize that this was only the initial damage. We spent the entire morning running from window to window to see which tree lost its limbs and what, if anything, was damaged in our yard. 9 a.m. I moved my Jeep out of the driveway and into the front yard and moved my husband's truck across the street into the meeting house field. At 10 a.m., a large branch fell from my front ash tree and it came down, taking the power lines leading to our house with it. The power cable fell onto the driveway where my car had just been parked. Now that the power lines were down, I could relax a little because I had been worried about them coming down all morning. 12 o'clock p.m. We walked outside and fell on the ice. The ground is treacherously slippery. The ice is so thick over the snow, we don't break through it when we walk. To get a foothold, you need to stomp on it and break through it so you don't fall. Neighbors came by on a four-wheeler equipped with chainsaw and hard hats. They told us that the bottom of Bell Hill was unpassable and they were going down to start clearing it. This was the first time we had met these folks, and it was still raining. 2 p.m., another large branch on the right side of the house fell, taking down the telephone lines. At 5 p.m., we heated leftovers on our wood stove for dinner and played Yahtzee by candlelight. 7:30 p.m., it was very dark. We all went to bed and it was still raining. There's no power in Norway or Oxford. In order to do any grocery shopping, you had to get in a line, which as we heard it, was all the way outside around the store. They allowed 10 people in at a time, and they rang up your purchases on handheld calculators by candlelight. Friday, January 9th, day 2. No school for the foreseeable future. All roads leaving Otisfield are blocked. No work or school. Trees are breaking every 2 seconds. We have just started to realize what a mess we have, and it's still raining. 10 a.m., Glenn, Lindsay, and I took a ride to assess the damage at the Seeds of Peace camp where my husband works. Glenn needed to get his chainsaw that he left there because we really did not have a clue about this storm and we were unprepared. First, he needed to put on his plow. That took 30 minutes with a propane torch to melt the ice off. The Powhatan Road was blocked about a quarter of a mile down with 6 snapped telephone poles. So we drove 12 miles around the lake to get there. Glenn plowed debris out of the road, trying to make it passable under canopies of ice-laden trees. Branches scratched and scraped the roof and the sides of the truck as we zigzagged down what looked like a backwards dirt path, certainly not a state route, the main route going through Otisfield. We came upon down power lines lying in the road, and we just drove over them. And also some road closed signs indicating more trees down ahead. The Casco AG store was full of life. People were scattering for gasoline, water, and food. Gasoline not only for their vehicles, but more importantly to run their generators. We filled up our truck and headed on to the Seeds of Peace camp. As we came around the bend in the road, we saw a sheared off top to a telephone pole dangling in the power lines over our heads. I half expected a cow or something to fly through the air. It looked like something from the movie Twister. Camp was a little scary. We had to drive in under the 100-foot ice-laden swaying pine trees. They were still intact for the most part, but cones and needles and small branches were raining down like cornflakes. We quickly picked up the generator and everything we needed and started the long ride back home. We were 2 miles from home if the road was clear. The road to camp and back home took us 2 hours. 12 p.m., our neighbors, Barbara and Rich McGuire, put a sign up in their yard announcing free water. So we stopped and filled up our 2 6-gallon Poland spring water jugs for drinking water. When we got home, we realized that water would have been our biggest problem. Thank God for friends. Glenn and I emptied out our refrigerator and the freezers. We put all the food we had in our greenhouse and we hoped for the best. We knew that sun in there was really the least of our problems. 6 p.m., we cooked supper on the wood stove, and it tasted good, but it's a bit tricky to keep it from burning. We turned on the generator and saw the news for the first time since this ice storm began. They said that over 300,000 people were out of power, and Maine was requesting help from other states. Before we were through, we had utility crews from Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. And it was still raining. The trees were still coming down, and I had to use earplugs to fall asleep. Day 3, Saturday, January 10th. The rain stops. The day dawned bright and sunny, but the temperatures never warmed up to melt anything. There was so much moisture in the air that a fog bank settled in, blocking out the sun. Glenn, Lindsay, and I chipped the ice off our deck. It was 2 inches thick, and we had to use a sledgehammer to remove it. Danny Davis, Glenn's friend, came over to see our yard. All the maples had lost their tops, and the ash out front had lost all of its secondary branches. It took 3 people and 45 minutes to get the ice off my Jeep. It came off like plaster molds, 1.5 inches thick. We had to remove all the ice, not just from the windshield, for fear that it would fly off and hit someone while I was driving. Even my tires were encased in ice. Branches were still breaking and crashing every 8 to 10 seconds. I hand-picked all the ice off my 5-year-old spruce tree that I had been nurturing since it was a seedling. The ice slid right off like a pair of mittens. One of my window boxes fell off the house, and a large limb was in my garden over our camper and our fence. Nothing was damaged, and had just missed my young apple tree. I stopped at my friend Mary Ann Warren's house on Scribner Hill, and the damage there was staggering. Her driveway was blocked, and her husband's truck was holding up a prized birch tree. She was holed up and not going out. Linda Lawler across the street had even worse luck with her trees. We had to walk up the road and squeeze by piles of branches and go in through her garage. The temperature in her kitchen was 48 degrees. They finally found a generator soon after that. Then we went to the grocery store. Some of the roads were barely passable with all the ice on them. They had power at the store, but no deli, no frozen food, and meat and bottled water was all gone. I was working for Dr. Knopp at the time down on Norway Main Street, and his mother had just passed away, so the office was closed, which was fortunate. My son Noah's high school is now a shelter. After dinner, Glenn and I visited with our neighbors, who we really never get to see. We had a wonderful bottle of red wine, and they all enjoyed Cuban cigars. It really wasn't so bad at this point. Day 4, Sunday, January 11th. Maine's been declared a state of emergency. The day dawned bright and the sun warmed up. Now we had to be careful of getting hit with falling ice. It was so dazzling and bright, it was hard to comprehend how such devastation could be so beautiful. Laura Bean and I went to the fire station for a shower. We saw the first sign of rescue, a utility worker from Massachusetts, a Hummer, and a National Guardsman. We shouted to the lineman that we loved him out the van window as we drove by. Laura noticed he didn't wear a red wedding ring, and I thought he looked rather cute in his hard hat. Glenn took Noah, Jesse, and Danny down to the Caesar Peace kit. They put a generator in the back of their truck and hauled it down there and set themselves up with a TV while the boys went ice fishing on the lake. The guys made deer steak with garlic and pasta with sun-dried tomatoes on the wood stove. At this point, it was important to get out of the house for as long as possible. Lindsay had a friend over to help pass the time. Patterns of life without power had begun. Monday, January 12th, day 5. No school until Wednesday. I went into my office for half the day, never realizing that my shirt was on backwards. Oh well, that's what happens when you get dressed in the dark. We went out to eat supper that night. Just the thought of what to cook on the wood stove was too much. There are now waiting lists of people looking for generators, and rumors fly about prices. Tuesday, January 13th, day 6. No school all week. The President has declared Maine a federal disaster area, which means that the government will now help pay for 75% of the cleanup effort. I made fajitas on the wood stove for dinner. We are rising to every challenge. Lindsay wasn't feeling well, so we settled in for a good game of Scrabble by candlelight. Wednesday, January 14th, day 7. Frustration begins to set in. No utility crews have been seen in our town. 113,000 people are still out of power. Some roads are now blocked, so the cleanup of debris can continue unheeded. If you go out, expect to have to turn around. We are now showering at the Otisfield Elementary School, and I also did some laundry in their kitchen sink. Pizza to go for dinner and early to bed. Thursday, January 15th, day 8. It was sunny and warmer, and cleanup in the yard begins. The Massachusetts utility crews were sent home due to forecasted snow in their state. Additional crews from North Carolina were airlifted in trucks to replace the Massachusetts linemen. Snow forecasted for tomorrow of 12 to 18 inches. Utility trucks are now working in Otisfield. The reports of women flashing linemen circulate. Friday, January 16th, day 9. The snow is falling, and Glenn is out plowing for the town. The forecast calls for 4 to 8 inches of snow, down from the original 12 to 18 inches. The only sound I could hear this morning was the hum of distant generators. Tree trucks are on our hill, cutting limbs off the wires. Saturday, January 17th, day 10. 40,000 people still out of power. Rumors abound about when we'll get our power back. The news bears tidings of why this is called a disaster. 4 people dead, 1 suicide in our town, and a story of a man in Otisfield who suffered a shell-shock flashback induced by the sounds of the crashing trees. He thought he was back in Vietnam and tried to kill his wife. We are told Otisfield will be back online by Wednesday. Light at the end of our tunnel at last. Sunday, January 18th, day 11. Our friends the Tillanens invited us over for breakfast and a shower. 30,000 people still out of power. Monday, January 19th, day 12. The supervisor from the Baltimore Electric crew stopped door to door on Bell Hill to tell everyone when their power would be restored. He stopped and talked with us for half an hour. He told us that the Baltimore Cavalry would come to our rescue. It was very nice. Tuesday, January 13th, January 20th, day 13th. Power crews are making great progress. They told us our power will be on by dusk. At 5:20 p.m., we hear the neighbors hooting and hollering and notice that their house is all lit up. I looked out at the other neighbors and their house was lit up also, but we were still in the dark. I grabbed my keys, I ran out the door, bound and determined to track down one of those trucks. And there was one coming up the road and I ran right out in the middle, flagged him down, and said, "Stop!" And he went up on our pole and electricity was restored. We were out of power and electricity and running oil for 13 and a half days.
Historians love their repeaters. So, now it's your turn. David. Can I walk around with this?
Yep, just pull it right out.
Yeah, well, now we'd like to hear, we have already, very eager to share.
I don't have any details like Ann had, that was wonderful. We live on Scribner Hill, just next to Mary Ann Warren and between that and where the Lawlers lived. And we had put in a modular home there in November, and everything went very well. In fact, in November when we put in the home, we had beach chairs out because it was so warm, and shorts on and so forth. But we also realized we better get a Gentran system put in because we weren't quite sure that CMP would really believe that the house was ready for power, because they thought it was a stick-built house, which it isn't. So we had one put in, which brings us to the ice storm. Jean and Dave Hankins were going to New Zealand, and we took them to the airport, to Portland. On the way home, we noticed drips on the windshield, and we go, well, I'm glad they got out when they got out. You know, it's going to be kind of messy. Maybe it'll be a little bit icy. Little did we know. And Jean, I got to tell you that all during this time, Mike and I both said, oh, Jean and David should be here to experience this. But we took plenty of pictures of their house. I was amazed and happy that we did have power through our generator, because people came to our house to get water. They came to even do some cooking at times. We hosted 2 of our close friends and their cats for the whole time. And Sadly, Ed Lowe died during that time, who was our good friend and lived on next to the town office. And it was unexpected, and it was a very sad time. But as his family tried to get there and was there, they ended up coming to our house and showering, and we certainly were glad we could help them out. On a more pleasant note, after the sun came out, after all the major booming, the warlike sounds stopped, except for an occasional one. When that sun came out, I stood outside and I listened, and I guess I appreciated this being a music teacher, but the sounds of the icicles were like a woodland orchestra to me. And the sun shining through, making prisms in the icicles hanging down was just anything better than a museum of art. So my end game of thinking about the ice storm is remembering those two things, the music and the art. And very grateful that we can help other people out.
That was Priscilla Delahanty. I just remembered Jean asked people to identify themselves before they spoke. I was just wondering how it was for a town official.
It was just a barrel of laughs. I can tell you a few anecdotes. The one thing I would like to say, this town was well organized. Our fire department was behind it, and if there's anybody to really take credit for the organization that opened up the roads and checked on the townspeople and fed the emergency workers, it's Gary Dyer. He worked tirelessly all through this storm. The only thing I did when you asked a question, I just say spend the money, we'll pay for it somehow. And one anecdote was, as a town official, in Maryland Crew, I came home from work one night. I'd come home a couple times during the day, and then I'd go back because we were repairing the tree trucks. And the Maryland Crew was at my house, and I got out of the cab and he said, "You're going to have power in about 5 minutes." And I said, "That's great, how about up the road?" He said, "No, they're not going to get it for a while." I said, "Let me tell you something, I'm chairman of this town's board of selectmen. Don't you dare turn me on until the rest of this road gets lit up." One other comment they made, I told him, I said, "Wait a few minutes, I'll start the grill and make some coffee for you." He says, "Doesn't anything bother you people around here?" He said, "If we were home, we'd need a police guard after the second day." He said, "Up here, people bring out coffee and sandwiches, what a difference."
Leonard, thank you.
I'm Paula Bartow. We were without power for 9 days at my house, and I discovered that my limit for being good-natured about it is 5 days. So I, like Ann, cooked on wood stove by flashlight, and we played every board game in the house. On day 2 of the storm, the maple tree behind our house fell down on the house. And Ken said, "Well, we might just as well make the best of it." So we went out and cut hot dog sticks from the maple tree, and we put a fire in the fireplace and roasted hot dogs with the maple tree. We were fortunate because for the construction business, Ken has, at the time, he had 2 portable generators. So Ken was out most of the time during the storm because he was circulating the generators around between friends and neighbors. So everyone would get a generator for 2 or 3 hours or whatever, and then we moved the generator to someone else so they could shower and cool their fridge back down and whatnot. But I hear a lot of people talking about the sense of community, and it was really, really true. It brought out the best in people.
Thank you, Polly.
Hi, I'm Pat Worthman. I didn't live in Otisfield during the ice storm, but I'm a Mainer. I I was living in Freeport at the time, and even though we didn't have the devastation that happened just inland a little bit, we were hit pretty hard. And I did have power after the second day at my house, and the whole community gathered there, including my mother and father. My family is from Wilton, and I couldn't find the entire newspaper article about this. And because I think the media, my family, the police, all understood that the word murder during that period of time might have alarmed people into panic. So several days later, the Sun Journal did have a nice article, and I said I wish I found it. But what I did find, he said, Sun Journal reports, January 13, Stephen Dale Holloway shot his friend, Albert Sonny Parker, 68, with Parker's hunting gun at Parker's Village new home. Holloway is serving a 20-year jail sentence for manslaughter. When it happened, my parents were with me in my home. My husband, my then husband, worked for Central Maine Power Company, and he didn't come home for about 2 weeks. And so I was left with my home, my parents, my neighbors, but my son and I did pretty good. The call came into my house saying that my uncle was dead. And we just said, wow, you know, he might have been shopping ice, or he might have been shoveling, or he might have. The next morning, we had the battery-operated radio going, and we heard he had been murdered on the radio in the morning. Well, that's a little bit of a shock. So we tried to get more information, but even my own family didn't have very much information about it because we all were suspect at that time. Little did we know that the state police knew who did it. Right from the very beginning, they knew. And they had this fellow staked out in Farmington at a big motel. And Shirley and I pointed that out the other day. That motel still exists. So we waited. As a family, we waited. And we waited. And then the police happened. And then the Sun Journal did have a nice article, not nice, but they had an article about it. But by that time, the worst of this devastation was over in the state of Maine. And the fear of having something like a murder happen had subsided. But I think as a whole state with a community effort, that everyone, including my family, stayed very hush and very quiet about it. Because think about those days back then. If we had thought that a friend would come in our home and do something like that, when we're already traumatized, not knowing even where our own family members had gone to be safe, just imagine what it would have been like. And I have to admit to this day, during these ice storms that we have, and those trees snap off and it sounds like a gunshot, it brings back the memories of that very traumatic time in my family. So it was, it was a very, very hard time. And just because we didn't hear every detail about that, I'm not going to tell every detail about it. It was pretty gory. So thank you, Mary.
You guys played murder because your uncle wouldn't let this man come into his house.
Right.
Because he had so many people there, and this guy had a reputation. Okay.
I wasn't I wasn't living in Otisfield at the time. I was in Casco, and what my memory of the ice storm is, it forced me into dancing. My husband and I decided that we didn't have a generator or any heat, so we kept a small wood stove going in our, we call it the back room. And we had a small fireplace in the living room. And so we decided, we had a big house, that we would take turns. So we'd sleep for 4 hours, one of us would sleep, the other would stay up. and I had usually a 12 to 4 run, and it's awfully hard to stay awake. And I would turn on the radio, battery run, of course, and I would dance the night away to the room swaying and swinging. It was the only way to stay awake. So that's my memory. And I needed it to keep warm those days.
I've got a narrative written by Marilyn Stroud. She put she asked if I could read it. She has some interesting perspectives. Everybody's story is different. The ice storm of 98 started the evening before for me. It was January 7th, and school had been let out early because of potentially bad storm. A phone call informed me that Ed Lowe, a neighbor, the plumber and CEO, had died suddenly. He was too young. I woke up the next morning to the dogs barking. What had them all fired up? This is sort of like A&M Store's account. Let them out, and it sounded like gunshots in the woods, yet it was January and not hunting season by any stretch. After listening for a while, looking around, I figured out it was branches or limbs breaking off trees in the woods. Everything got a heavy coating of ice. Bushes were bent over as were trees. We lost power at 2:45 a.m. on January 8th. A state of emergency was in effect according to the radio. The roads were barely wide enough for one car to pass. We had horses, so getting water for them was a challenge. They were free to come and go as they pleased, but the fence was down, so we had to lock them in the barn. By January 9th, President Clinton had declared a state of emergency. The deer popped out of the woods in the backyard by Saturday. Al had purchased a generator that ran off our tractor, so we ran it to keep the chill out of the house. Since we sit up on a hill, we glowed at night in all the darkness. Sunday the 11th, Kelly, Lindsay, that's the two daughters, Kelly, Lindsay, and I went to the Spurs Corner fire barn where an emergency shelter had been set up. A hot shower felt good. We went upstairs and helped Frank Lavelle prepare dinner for the shelter. I remember ripping bread with stuffing. We lost our phone service on Sunday. Monday the 12th, no school for the rest of the week. We were having one hot meal a day up at Market Square Restaurant in South Paris and saw others there from Otisfield as well. Thank goodness we had full tanks of gas in our vehicles because none of the gas stations uptown had power, so we couldn't pump gas. We rode to Mary Ann Lawrence for day. Thursday, January 15th, we got our power back at 7:30 p.m. We had been out 161.75 hours. We played board games, read books, and I got my photo albums organized. Friday, January 16th, we got 9 inches of new snow. Nadine Rappo, a CMP worker, showed up at my door and asked if I could provide seating for a power crew for lunch. We hosted 10 guys from Narragansett Power for each piece of lunch provided by CMP. The guys were so appreciative of being in a warm house for a while. Saturday, January 17th, Al left for Florida. We lost our power again, and I had a meltdown. The sheriff actually came by to check on our well-being. I ended up getting pneumonia, and Al had to come back from Florida 3 days ago. Sunday, January 18th, we got our phone service back. Monday the 19th was a holiday, and school went back in session on the 20th. And that's the end of her account.
I've got a whole different approach to the Otisfield ice storm. We were living in Hudson, New Hampshire at the time, and we were both working in Massachusetts. And the power went out in Hudson, as it did around many areas in that area as well. But the power seemed to get restored fairly quickly along the main Route 3, which was very near our home. And the power stayed on at both places where we were working in Massachusetts, over an hour away for us. So we went into work several days. We could take a shower there because we had gyms and everything else to do that. But when we came home, it was freezing cold. We had electric heat, no generator. But we still did have water and sewer that functioned. After about 4 or 5 days, we finally decided that this was getting pretty old. And the only heat we had was from a fireplace that didn't work too well. And we found that the people that were staying the longest were the cats because they took the seat closest to the fireplace. So we called our neighbors, Reggie and Louise Dews, and said, "Do you have power up there?" And they said, "Oh yeah, come on up, no problem." So we came up, packed everything up, came up to Otisfield and came into our house, which was fully functioning and no problem getting in. And we stayed there, I don't know, probably a week or so. And fortunately we were able to work from home even then. So we evacuated New Hampshire, came to Otisfield.
Craig Turner. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think the Cape probably was the last place in Otisfield, and maybe even the state of Maine. We were out for 19 days. The road was clogged. I couldn't get out to 121. Ethel, bless her heart, was in California, but her mother was there. And I can't remember now how old she was, but she was a sport. She was about almost 90 at the time, I think. And so I needed to get out to get her somewhere to one of her daughters because I had no heat, I had no generator. So I was working my way out. It's about a half a mile. Yeah, it's off 121. Jim Burnham lived on the other side, on the roadside, and he worked the other way. It took us about 3 days to change on. Part of the problem was that we could only work for 2 or 3 hours because then the stuff was coming in. There was a tremendous pine trees that line the Cape Road, and those pine trees were dropping. It was like that. It just was, you were taking your life in your hands to get up there at about 10 o'clock, so we just have to follow the day after that. Eventually, I did get out, delivered her to Dottie Adams, Ethel's sister. She was a hell of a sport. I will say this, a hell of a sport. She really was. But I think she was kind of glad to get out of there and get somewhere where she could have a hot shower or a hot bath. I finally got a generator down the window. The first one didn't work. The thing ran, but it wouldn't generate electricity. I had to go back again, get another one, bring it back. And but the problem with the Cape is that the well is a long way from the house. So a generator at your house isn't going to run the well. It just won't do it. I mean, it's a couple of probably 3 football fields away. So I didn't have any water, but I could heat part of the house. Part of the heating system there was a closed system. You could heat that with the generator. The other part was an open system. We needed water, so couldn't do much with that, but at least I had half of it going. This was after about 8 days. How about sanitary conditions? Well, the lake was not frozen over completely. So I would run down to the lake with buckets and bring enough up to take care of that sort of thing, to replenish the flushers. And so, I could use those. Had no shower, of course. But eventually I did get another generator for the well house. Eve Chilson got his power back and gave me a call. Or I saw him, I can't remember how it went. But he said, look, you need another generator down there? I said, yeah, so I'll bring it down, and he did. And that was quite a relief. It was a long 19 days. I was working at the time too, and I don't recall anything close going down, so I was sort of juggling back and forth between my office and Auburn and the house. It was a long 19 days.
And I'm just wondering, how do you feel after it's over, the lights are on?
I felt pretty good.
Yeah, you may survive.
That's right.
My house was filthy.
Oh,
It was so dirty, I wanted to turn the lights back off.
Well, it's true, there's none of that, no cleaning up. Of course, I had a wood stove in the kitchen, and an old one, and I had a wood stove that was an insert of fireplace. It was a huge house.
yeah.
And so, you just had to keep those going all the time. And nothing froze happened. But that meant that you had ashes everywhere, and geez, nothing but bones and things.
Vicki Rogers said, Vicki, yes you are. Will you tell you a story, Vicki? I've got it here. Do you want to read it?
No, I'll tell them.
I'll take it.
First, I have to give a shout out for my brother Justin Sincati, who said that Eve Joseph and Pete Arnson were fantastic cleaning up Caulfield Road. He couldn't make it tonight. My story is 6.5 years later. 5 sets of twins registered at the school. I don't need to say anything more, except that I wonder if twinning was a biological response to the present.
Yeah, a similar thing happened in New York when the waitress went out for a couple of months. Birth rate jumped 50%.
Gary won't, well, he will speak, but I'll give you the wife's perspective of the fire chief. When a disaster strikes, he leaves. See ya. And you call every so often and say, where are you, and those kind of things. But if any of you remember when Gary was fire chief, you remember that you always called Gary. That was people's first response, was to call Gary at home. So guess who the secretary is? We had, at home, I could keep home going. I have propane to cook on. You don't cook in the oven, but you can cook on top. Wood stove to heat. When the ice started melting a little bit, we were putting 5-gallon buckets under the eaves to catch water because we had horses to feed and water as well. And a canner on the wood stove or beside the wood stove at all times, so there was always water melting for the sanitary reasons as well as the horses. The first 2 or 3 days, I think probably Gary slept a couple hours, maybe, because as well as the fire chief, he would do his fire chief duty for, I don't know, 15 of those hours, and then all of the cottages and camps that we caretake for, they had no power, and the ones that had water and heat on had no water and heat, so those had to be drained, or there would be frozen pipes. So it was a very tiring time for the first few days until those things were kind of taken care of. The thing I remember, other thing I remember is it was almost an eerie silence when the trees, as well as the tree branches breaking and falling. It was kind of a combination. It's like, that is a really weird sound. And then a tree branch breaks or a tree falls. It was kind of a very strange combination. That's about it. We did lug in ice to melt for the horses, which I had the kids. Okay, we need water, we'll get ice, and they bring in a big hunks and throw them in the kettle, sit them there and let them would call and say, you people are still, I heard all about the ice storm, how's it going? It's like, well, we're managing. How do you cook? How do you stay warm? And it's like, well, you have propane, you have wood, and you want water. That's it. Your turn.
Yeah, my turn. I want to tell you it was the longest month. Just didn't stop after we got out. But the thing that everyone in Otisfield and the surrounding communities is very proud of is the people. It wasn't just me. I may have been at the top and helped with being a ringleader. God bless the Richard Dean and his group. The Day brothers, you see today when you go on. There's nothing any brighter than to see an excavator and a skidder coming down the road. The Day boys, once they got to their father's house, they said, what are we going to do? We're going to start from here, we're going to meet somebody. That's what we did. The good feature about the town is once we got to the fire station, we got that set up as a shelter. We formed groups. Everybody basically knew, once we got it mapped out, I think Tracy helped with mapping at one time. And Frank Waldo was a godsend. I think we put most restaurants out of business. We would bring in food in from freezers and just saying, cook it, somebody will eat it, and there was always somebody there. And as far as rescue calls and fire calls, it was fantastic. We had a super team. We did have the Henniker Park fire, but you couldn't see the road. The road was completely encapsulated with trees. And Richard Bean says, I'll go first, I'll get to the bottom if I can. Because we headed into the fire trucks after that, and it was, you go in and there was red lights laying on the side of the road, there was just everything. And then he would say, that's okay, just keep going. The thing that I really thought was real fantastic was how Central Manpower, they sent in Matt Barker, a young leader. And he said, I need a map of the town as we see it, but I need to know where every pole is broken. And that's where the wives came in, and they went out and formed groups. And he said, I've never had people come out and help like that. So, but it was a team effort. It wasn't just one person. Other than Richard Bean called me on the radio and said, where are you? It's time to go home. I said, I don't know where I am. Because it was a fact that you would get into a place, you clear a road, turn around, and clear the road, get out. The trees were just snapping right behind you. You watch in front of you, beside you, and overhead. So, but it was something that I really hope we never have to do again. But I can guarantee you, this town and all the other towns around us will get through it again because they make it.
Thank you, Gary. Tell us what Otisfield goes.
I'm Bob Tracy. Live down on the Smart Way, off the Memorial Road. At the time of the incident we were talking about, I was building a new home. It was a Kaiser home, which had been transported to the property in the Otisfield Cove in November. but it was sitting there and probably in boxes, wrapped up, until December, when they brought in some cranes and heavy equipment, lifted the boxes up onto the foundations, and pretty much left it. By the end of December, the crew that was working the carpentry work was involved in another project, and they couldn't get to the project right away. So we were kind of in limbo. My wife, June, was in New Jersey. We were trying to sell our home down there. And I was staying with Martin Wiley. Martin Wiley used to have that farm right next door to this community hall. This was a pretty well-known character in town. He had put a trailer on top of the road, very near what used to be a log landing, and which was characterized by a whole cluster of white birches. And today, as you drive up a third of a mile up the top of the road from 121, you come to that cluster of white birches, which really used to be very beautiful scenery. They took a real hit during the storm because white birches are easily bent. They load up quickly. These trees right here, birches. And these birches bent over and froze to the cobble road. So the morning after the storm, I got out a chainsaw and snipped off the tops of the trees, and then with a baseball bat started whacking the branches, breaking the ice off. And I dare say within 10 or 12 hours, those trees had lifted off the road probably 8 or 9 feet. Today, they're pretty well recovered. I think the hardship for Martin and me was lack of water. Water is so essential, so important to good living, and we simply didn't have any. We didn't have a generator. My brother-in-law, Thompson, was a plumber, so he had a small generator, and which he used to power his tools on jobs, obviously. And I was looking at what Radio Road. Mark and I think we went 3, maybe 4 days with what water we had on hand, and we were able to go to Bob's and Gene Hollister's home. And his water actually took a shower. My God, that felt good. We were very grubby at that point. Keeping frozen food was not a problem. Simply took it out, stuck it in the snow bag, and it kept very well. When we wanted something to eat, we got in the package and thaw it out. Mark's a very frugal guy. He had a combination oil and wood furnace, and naturally, without power, the oil feature did not operate. So we had heat because we had wood, and we fire a stove in the kitchen with wood. So heat was not so much an issue as water was. My biggest recollection of the storm itself is pretty much what has been previously referred to here, that the noises that you heard coming from the woods were just incredible. And in the total darkness of the home, and hearing the branches snap, and the ice crackling, tingling as the branches tumbled to the ground, was just amazing. And somebody has already said it sounded just like gunshots, sometimes almost like cannon shots. And then the noise of the 9 days somehow. We did get our power back, and it was so incredibly beautiful when the sun came out. It was so picturesque. Oh my God, it was just beautiful. Just to see the sun and to see the beauty of the sparkling on the trees and so on. But it was so good to get the power back on. Thank you.
And Bob was looking at it through the eyes of a photographer, and I was very good photographer. And his pictures up here demonstrate his skill as a photographer. Anyone else? Okay, well, this has been a very good sharing of one of our area's most historical events and that touch all our lives. And so this is the end of our program for this year. And this winter, the Board of Directors will be coming up with lots of good ideas for next year. If you have any ideas, we would also appreciate it. There's one other point I wanted to make. I forgot your treasurer's report. That's all right. But in line with the treasurer's report, I just want to say that you've probably seen we've done a really fantastic job in building the old townhouse. It's now basically functional. Our archives are there. And you also might have noticed just recently it has a brand new roof. Okay? This roof was necessary. And we didn't have the money to pay for it. So I want you to know that that roof was put on there by borrowing money from the board members. Okay? That's where the funds came to put that roof on. So next year, when it comes time for your tax deductible donations, please remember
Pleasant Lake, many of which are Jewish people, or mostly Jewish clientele. We've done a lot of interviews, and we'd love to hear from people in this room and elsewhere who have knowledge about their heyday, the heyday of those camp days, either by working there or by knowing the people that went there. And we plan to do a program with the society next year.
Okay, there's some goodies out back. I want to socialize a bit.